Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in about 6-7 minutes. So please feel free to get a drink of water, walk around, stretch a little bit, all of those great things. We'll get started in a little bit, and you can also sign in now. Let me actually move something because I feel like it may be blocking you guys from signing in. All right. Feel free to sign on in. I'll drop the links to the slides in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for joining us today, or joining me today. For those of you wondering what this session may be about, it's about a program that we have in our digital learning team called Personalized Learning Environments, where we think about how we can redesign or we think about how our students are engaging with technology, but also with the environment that the classroom is made up and looks like, with the hopes of really being able to drive students towards independence and being able in supporting them in being agents of their own learning, where they have choice and voice and autonomy over those things. So we'll be chatting more about like what educators have done in the program already, and start thinking of resources and things that you guys can take back to your classrooms this year. So we'll chat more about that, but I just want to give few people a little overview of what this session will be. We'll do some explore time. You'll get in groups and kind of share out some ideas, really just trying to give you guys some ideas to engage and create and inspire you to go off into your classrooms and kind of switch up the ways that we are instructing our little ones, and maybe switching from instructing to facilitating and growing with them. So I hope that answers your questions. I'll drop the links in the chat. We're gonna get started in a few minutes. I'm just gonna drop links to the chat for slides and signing in, just letting you guys know you only need to sign in once on this one. So if you signed in from a previous session or from our opening keynote, you're all good in terms of that, but wanted to make sure that you guys had access to everything that you need. You have access to slides and access to sign in. We'll get started in about 3 minutes. Perfect time for you to grab that sip of water, grab a fresh cup of coffee. We'll be discussing a little bit about personalized learning environments, what that looks like in your classrooms, and kind of sharing some resources of what educators have done across the district with hopes and ideas that you can bring them back to your classrooms this year. Super excited to have all of you guys with us today. I'll update that access now. Let me know if that works, May. Just updated it, but I just want to make sure you guys have access. All right, we're going to get started in about 1 more minute. Thank you so much, May. I appreciate you. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for the slides and for sign in. If you've already signed in for the day, you do not have to sign. You can sign in once and it'll be good for the day. You don't have to sign in multiple times, but just want to give access to everyone to make sure that they are signed in. You should have access to the slides now, and we'll get started in about 1 minute. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Devlin Jackson, and this is PLE for me. PLE stands for Personalized Learning Environments. Thank you. And our hope is that today you will be able to come and kind of be in community with other educators, other SFUSD staff members, and learn a little bit about what personalized learning environments is, but also thinking of some resources and ideas you can take back to your classrooms and spaces. Before we dive in deep, we're going to do a quick little warm opener. Just want you guys to drop in the chat your name, your school site, our department, and your role, and really kind of tuning into ourselves. What's one commitment that you're going to make to yourself this school year, and what do you need to make it happen? It's been a lot of things going on these last few years, and really just want to make sure that we are grounded as educators and supporting ourselves first so that we can pour into our students in our classrooms and our families this year. So just take a second to drop in the chat who you are, where you do it, what you do, and a commitment you have for yourself. All right, we have some low lights, I think they called them. I used to go to low. I think that's what they called us. Self-care. Self-care is big. We have some people from Tenderloin. I'm gonna drop links in the chat to slides and sign in. Parent educators from Denman, taking ownership of my own decisions. That one's big. It's hard and it's important. Ooh, migrant ed program folks in the house. Thanks for joining us. All right. Plan part. Perfect. I want to commit. Yes, yes. It's hard, Claire, but it does make a difference when they know that they have the voice and choice in their spaces. It was hard for me too as an educator. Being present with students and talk things out slowly. Yep, that sounds great. Being present is hard, especially in today's society. So making a choice to actively show up is amazing. Yes, sleep. That is one thing I do not get enough of, and I will definitely try to work harder to do that one too. All right, we're going to keep on going. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Devlin Jackson. I am one of the digital learning partners in the Department of Technology. My focus is family technology support, and now I'll also be doing a lot of the personalized learning environments work this year. So please feel free to reach out, ask questions throughout the school year. The digital learning team is here to help and support your classrooms and your school sites with digital learning needs, technology needs. If you just want a thought partner on how we can actually make this happen, we are your team. And I'm just excited to talk to you guys a little bit about personalized learning environments. In full transparency, I am the only team member on here right now. So I'll be kind of going through chat and looking on screen. So I'm not ignoring you, just kind of eyes in 3 places at once, kind of like a classroom. So we'll see if I still got it. All right, today's agenda. We already did our warm opener. We're going to do some introduction and framing. We'll talk a little bit about deeper learning and PLE, our personalized learning environments. Then I'm going to send you guys off to take a break to just kind of take care of yourself. 5 minutes of going outside and getting a fresh breath, getting water, hugging your littles if they're around. Just doing something for you. Then we'll go into some explore time. You'll explore for about 10 minutes by yourselves, looking at personalized learning environment resources and examples from some of our PLE educators and some of our PLE sites. We'll come back as a big group and kind of do a little share out of what we've seen, what we've heard, and hopefully get to the part where we're talking about next steps and maybe even some idea shares on how those next steps can happen. I know it says breakout in here. I've heard from other team members that breakout is kind of wonky, so we may not do breakout rooms. Since we have kind of a smaller session, I'll try to just have us do a breakout or a whole group share out, but we'll see how it goes. Keep on going. A link to today's resources. If you want to be able to join or go along the slides with me, you can scan that QR code. It'll take you straight to the webpage, but I'll also drop a link in the chat and you can join in there. This is also being recorded, so we can always come back to it and have your friends look at it too a little bit later if you're excited about bringing this work to your classroom. Another reminder to sign in. You only have to sign in once for the whole day. So if you've already signed in, don't worry about it. If you haven't signed in, please sign in so that we know that you are here and present and we can help you with getting your compensation for coming. Quick little Zoom reminders. I know everyone's been in Zoom for going on 3 years now, but just a quick reminder. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking or sharing. We're recording this session. So when you came in, it should have let you know that it was being recorded. And if you don't want to be recorded, just keep your video off. We understand. And then please use the chat if you have any questions. But if you also feel like I haven't gotten to your question or concern, just feel free to kind of raise your hand. Just let me know you have something that you want to share. Our hope for today, my hope for you guys is that during this meeting, you'll be able to explore the interrelatedness of deeper learning framework and the personalized learning environments program. You'll be able to discuss and hopefully problem solve some planning and implementation ideas with your colleagues on the call, and you'll be able to understand the scope of the PLE program and ways to bring PLE practices into your classrooms and school sites. You have access to the slides, you have access to sign in. So I'm just going to go straight into some framing. So a big question that a lot of folks ask me when we have our first couple conversations as a digital learning partner is, why does technology matter for educational equity? It took me a while to kind of really flesh it out and think of it, but I think this graphic shows it perfectly. We must focus on equity of access and equity of opportunity with technology. So really thinking that now that we have access and we're in this one-to-one move for students and families to have devices, how are we supporting them with that? How are we engaging in deeper learning? How are we empowering students through agency, voice, and identity? And because we have this access of technology, how are we really working towards closing some some of those gaps in access, achievement, and opportunity. And I feel like technology and my experience with technology as an educator, as a parent, as a student, and now on this team is really leveraging technology to help with that work. Continue to build on that coherence and thinking how we can support each and every student through those different levels of engagement and empowerment. We have that access piece, but how are we now closing gaps with engagement and empowerment using technology? I really wanted us to take a second to kind of ground ourselves in this idea of instructional coherence. It's not something new for the district, but we have a bigger priority or a bigger focus on it as a district. And I thought this quote was a great quote to kind of think about what we mean by coherence and instructional coherence at that in SFUSD. I'll give you guys a second to kind of read through it. You can kind of write in the chat words or phrases that are sticking out to you. What do you think when you hear instructional coherence? All of those things. So give you about 1 minute to just kind of read through it and maybe write in the chat 1 or 2 phrases that are coming up for you when you hear that. All right, for me, when I read this phrase, I think the first sentence really sticks out for me. What we need is consistency of purpose, policy, and practice. Structure and strategy aren't enough. Really rethinking, we have the content, we have the resources to do that, but if we're not all on the same page, everyone's experience is different. And if we're really leaning on that if everyone's experience is different, that means that each and every family may not be served. So how are we making sure that if we're all on the same page, that all of our students, all of our families, all of our school sites are actually getting what they need to be able to achieve the graduate profile and let our students be able to thrive in the 21st century. So going in deeper a little bit with that is that SFUSD is really focusing on instructional coherence over these next 2 to 3 years. And they're kind of framed in 3 different buckets: that deeper learning framework, the core instruction rubric, and instructional guidance website. If you haven't seen those things, I encourage you to check out our instructional coherence webpage and looking into our deeper learning framework. And I'm happy to share those with you guys. But in terms of PLE, we really focus on that deeper learning framework, that first little arrow bucket. And how are we really using these core priorities of assessment for learning, equitable access and demand, inquiry and collaboration with technology to support our students building out that culture of learning, building out that academic ownership, that demonstration of learning and essential content, so all of our students are able to achieve that graduate profile. And that sounds like a lot of words, so let's go a little bit deeper with that. And so I really enjoyed this slide that they shared from Admin Institute, kind of sharing what deeper learning is. When you think about deeper learning, I love this quote from Pedro Nagara that names that in classrooms and schools focused on deeper learning, teachers are constantly looking for evidence that students are learning, and students are constantly looking for their own evidence of learning. That orientation makes the classroom a totally different place. It becomes a working place, not a listening place. When teachers teach with a focus on the evidence of learning, they teach differently. They teach like a coach or a music teacher, because they're constantly looking at students and asking, am I getting through? Am I reaching the student? What does his or her work show? So really taking it back from just being someone who's that sit and get, how are we kind of learning together? How do I know my students are learning with me? And so I can only give you a reflection of my experience as an educator with that. And then I would love to kind of have some conversations really quickly about your experiences with that. So before being a part of the digital learning team, I was a K-1 educator at George Washington Carver in the Bayview for 7 years. And I really dived deep with the personalized learning environments. At that time, it was a pilot with my students and myself. And so these are some of the images of what it looked like after, I think, a year and a half in of what that experience looked like with my students. It really shifted from me being the person in the front of the classroom, having my desk set up, to me not even really having a desk in the classroom anymore. I put my stuff in the closet, and wherever I ended up that day was where I ended up. My students became the ones that were in the front of the classroom teaching their students, teaching their classmates and showing them the tips and tricks and tools that they learned in our lessons and in our activities together. My students were able to choose where they wanted to sit, and they got to choose how they wanted to engage in the work. So you see images of students sitting buddy. There's one in this one image on the bottom left is of one student deciding he likes sitting in front of me and reading. Another student said, I actually like reading on the iPad. And at the same time, another student said, I kind of just want to sit on the floor and do my work. All three of them super engaged. All three of them still learning their content area, but all three of them choosing the way they wanted to show up. And I think that is what's groundbreaking for me when I think about personalized learning. It's not throwing out the content. It's not changing what they're learning. It's just changing how they're engaging with it. And the way that they are in charge of it brings a different level of connection and community that you cannot have in other spaces. So that was a little bit of my experience with it. And I just want to kind of share some of the shifts when we think about deeper learning, that we're shifting to this idea. Actually, instead of me talking, I feel like I've been talking a lot, actually. Does someone want to unmute and maybe share one or two of these star bulleted points of what that shift looks like? How is deeper learning shifting our beliefs? You might want to go for it.
I'll go for it. Focusing students on the learning versus the work, developing growth versus fixed mind.
You started with us, and then I think we lost you. Well, I appreciate you starting us off. Someone else want to take off where she left off for us?
Developing growth versus fixed mindset, teaching for understanding versus knowledge, promoting collaboration versus competition, encouraging deep versus surface learning strategies, holding an asset versus a deficit lens, promoting independence versus dependence, ensuring access and cognitive demand for each and every versus just some.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your voice. I think that last one really gets to me because it really switches from, oh, these 2 or 3 groups are working really well, but I can't get this one, but that's okay. No, it's not. It's how do we make sure all of our students are showing up in the ways that they want to show up? Now, part of that is kind of leaving back a lot with what Dee Lanier was talking about in our opening session, leaving back those old ways of teaching that we may have learned that way, but recognizing that we are not students in today's society. Our students are changing and evolving as a times, and how are we helping them find their best way to learn and grow with us in community? So we're going to go into a group discussion. It was going to be a breakout discussion, but I don't really want to kind of throw us off with the groove of breakouts possibly not working. So we're going to try it in a different format. Looks like we have about 20 friends on the call, 23. I think we can do it by trying our raised hand feature. So if you go to the more button in yours, there's like a reactions part, and you can kind of raise your hand there, and then I'll call on you and you can share out your name, your school site, and your role, and maybe thinking about these 2 questions. Your experiences around teaching and learning deeply. When or where have you experienced a learning experience where you were able to honor your identity and community, build proficiency, or create with purpose? And how did that learning environment contribute to that experience? So it doesn't have to be when you were teaching. It could have been an experience when you were learning with others. Where were you able to honor yourself in that and honor your community? And were there any teacher moves or facilitator moves that happened that facilitated that conversation or that experience for you? So if you're feeling brave or just interested in being a part of the conversation, you can go ahead and go to that more button, and in reactions, raise your hand. You can also just unmute, and we'll just do a little equity of voice around here.
Hi, I'm Marianne. I'll share again, even though so I'm a teacher librarian at Washington High School, and I did a unit last year with the health teacher, and students were doing she wanted them to do a research project on drugs and alcohol, and I said, well, why don't we expand it to addictions so that they can choose like what's pertinent to them, and then there were all the steps along the way of how to do this, how to do that in doing their research and doing the slides. But I graded their overall presentations, and the teacher couldn't figure out how to get it in her grade book. She couldn't wrap her head around that I wasn't grading every single assignment. So some kids could do it with the assignments, but some kids got it without having to do all the in-between assignments. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or they didn't get it along the way, but they finally got it at the end when they were working with their group to create the product. So it was really challenging, but really great to kind of shift this teacher's thinking on how to grade students around something like that. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. I think that names that piece of that productive struggle. Is like we're so used to teaching and learning in one way, but if the student is still that process over product, that student is picking up the process along the way, that they don't have to necessarily check off all the boxes, but if they get that essential content and they're able to kind of express what they learned in their own way, it changes the classroom experience. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your experience with us. Anyone else want to share? Feel free to unmute.
Hello.
Hi. You want to share an experience where you were able to teach or learn deeply?
Yes, I just can't figure out. I don't see my name on the screen, but you could hear me, right?
Yes, let's see. I can probably pin you too if that's helpful.
This is Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi. I'm a special ed teacher for pre-K level intervention. And, no matter what grade we teach, what service we provide, we're all educators. So I feel that our students guide our teaching. And I'm a big promoter of hands-on experiences when you're trying to teach a concept. And myself growing up very young, I learned much better when I would touch things, when I would have a lot of hands-on, right, on materials. So with inclusion with special ed, these kids are exposed to their typically developing peers, and they're watching, they're learning, no matter what disability, they have to work with. I feel they're all children, they're ready to learn. And if you just stand in front of them and then talk, that's not good. But if you're trying to teach a concept, like for example, we did a bug theme. Let's get them into the garden. They would go to the garden. They would like, oh, let's do a bug hunt. Look for ladybugs, look for bumblebees, look for critters that they don't even have any idea in their brains what they're called. So just exposure with hands-on materials. And I just think that's the best way also to teach the little ones. And also I see kids in elementary, middle school, high school, where they're coming together as a team, exploring a concept and hands-on materials.
Yes, thank you so much, Teresa. I think you named an important point. It's like, how do we let them be able to explore the world around them? How do we build that sense of inquiry where they can ask the questions and they can drive what's really what excites them? It doesn't have to always be sitting in one space and you're going to learn all the names of all these insects so we can check that off. It's no, like, how do we get you out in the space and learn and grow and connect with people, not only in your classroom, but maybe across grade levels, across age groups? How do we bring in those older students from high school back into elementary schools to support and mentor? And maybe it may not be in person, maybe it may be on Zoom, maybe it may be recordings, but how do we really elicit the way that we can have collaboration across grade levels, across different school sites, so the students can still learn and grow that inquiry?
Yeah, that's exactly, that's a great idea. So I'm a big promoter, like I said, hands-on and keep teaching, and all the best to everybody.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Lisa. Maybe one more before we continue. Anybody else want to go? I'm looking this way because this is where like your screens and faces are, even though like the video is this way.
Hi. Hey, Devlin, Demetria from
Hi.
Charleston. The question actually made me think, of two things: our group, our PLC that we were a part of, and how we would actually take things and processes that we would want to implement in the classroom, and in that PLC that we were a part of, that we are a part of, cohort 3, we would actually practice some of those strategies, some of those processes, and get the feeling as a child, as a student would. Right. And then when you go into the classroom, it kind of gives you a clear expectation of how the process might go in the classroom, and how the children will feel, in that process as well. And it kind of made me think about what the lady said before, the hands-on, how hands-on is so powerful. Giving the students the opportunity to really learn deeply with hands-on materials, hands-on experiences, firsthand experiences. And it also made me think of when we did the visual thinking strategies activity, which I love. We practiced that, and then taking that and taking the kids even on a walk, right? And sitting in front of a tree or whatnot, and just asking them, pulling the information that they see, what they hear, what they feel, what they smell, all those, and how profound it can be, not only for the student, but for you as the educator as well. Because it gives you a glimpse to see on how much they know, what they already know, where you can build, things like that, and giving them a safe space to say whatever comes to mind. I think the biggest piece of all of that was the safe space that I felt as a learner in that PLC, and wanting to provide the same safe space for the children to learn, make mistakes, and do those things in the learning environment as well. In the learning environment also being outside of the classroom, at the grocery store, on a field trip, at the park, exploring, things like that. So
thank you so much. I heard you name this piece of like the building a safe space. How do we build safe spaces? Really thinking of our students and our families first, knowing that these last couple of years have been to say the least. And how do we rebuild that trust, that vulnerability that some of us, I know there's some vet educators on this call right now. How do we rebuild that piece of knowing that we need to start with a safe place first? And that may be throwing out some older ideas, our older ways of thinking, to help support that deeper learning, that it's hands-on, it's getting our students out there in the real world, exploring, asking questions, collaborating with each other, bringing in their own knowledge and their prior experiences of the world that they have imagined and been a part of, to really drive those conversations and learning. Not saying that content is out the window, but how do we build the two together? So we're going to keep going in the interest of time, but I really appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts and expressions with me. So just wanted to kind of reground that deeper learning in SFUSD is the spiraling of experiences. So really thinking of how we're enabling students to honor their own identity and community, and then building onto that with proficiency and looping in the content and essential content our students need, so that they can create with purpose and be able to demonstrate their learning in their own ways. And then that's how we can achieve the graduate profile. So when we're thinking about how the PLE program, Personalized Learning Environments program, supports deeper learning, I want to kind of take us back for a second and kind of ground us in those two missions. So SFUSD's mission statement is that every day we provide each and every student with the quality instruction and equitable support required to thrive in the 21st century. And that PLE pilot mission, we've moved out of pilot and we're just a PLE program now, is that our cohort of pre-K, and possibly now TK is in there too now, pre-K through 5th grade schools, personalized learning environment schools, seek to create models for technology-enabled personalized learning environments that transform student learning across SFUSD with an initial focus on designing learning environments that will benefit our African American and focal students, and can eventually be scaled district-wide so that each and every SFUSD student can achieve the competencies of the graduate profile. Very wordy, so we're going to talk a little bit more in depth of what that actually looked like. So in the beginning, it was a few schools, 12 schools to be exact, and we focused on one-to-one technology and flexible furniture, kind of those seats you saw in my classroom. We focused on mindsets, on how you can really elevate your classroom experience by kind of taking out all the filler and fleshing out what your students' interests are, and having empathy questions and asking them, how do you want to learn and where do you want to learn? There were admin PLCs, so where those school site admin or the PLE schools, those admin would come and kind of have release days and talk amongst themselves about how we can flesh this out across sites. And then there were also release days for educators where we would all come to one site and talk and share ideas and collaborate. Fast forward to this past year, we expanded within our 14 PLE schools. We focused on virtual PD and really dived deep with deeper learning priorities of assessment for learning, equitable access and demand, collaboration and inquiry. We participated in virtual peer observations where educators would just record their classrooms on Zoom. And then we even brought in literacy coaches to see, like, what if we focus on one content area? And for us, that was ELA. And how do we bring in our ELA coaches to kind of discuss what's actually coming up in these classrooms and how can PLE help and support those initiatives that our elementary ELA team had. Kind of quickly going over this one because I want to give you guys a chance to explore. Just kind of gives you what is PLE, where is it, why do we do it, and how do we do it. I'm going to encourage you guys to go back and look at this one, but I want to give you guys a chance to actually see the resource and then be able to talk, because I think learning happens when we're together. But really thinking about the how did we actually do this work together? We really tried to dive deep into building capacity within our school sites and our program teachers. We use literacy videos, so our educators recorded themselves specifically teaching ELA content areas, and kind of using that Gholdy Muhammad humanizing pedagogy framework that our elementary ELE teams are working deeply with, and trying to capture and share as many examples and best practices across school sites so that we can share it and talk about it as a group. Because we know that learning happens when we're all doing it together. So now I'm going to give you guys to just explore and learn. Says 10 minutes. I think we can do it in 10 minutes and come back and have a very brief conversation, but I want you guys to have time to explore. I may actually cut it down to 5 just so you have time to have breaks. So instead of it being a 15-minute chunk, it'll just be 10 minutes. But I will drop the links in the chat. If you have access to the slide deck, all of these links are clickable, but I'll drop them in the chat as well, where you can just review SFUSD examples of PLE in action. So if you're really focused on the equitable access and demand piece, I would encourage you to look at that one. If you're more interested in, like, how did sites bring this out across grade levels, take a look at that PLE examples one. And I really would love for you guys to record your noticings and wonderings in the PLE Padlet. That way I can also take it back to my team and just kind of share, like, oh, this is what's coming up. This seems like it's something we can go deeper with. It also helps me while you guys are kind of sharing your noticing. We won't break out in breakout groups, but we'll come back in about, I think we could actually come back in 15 minutes. So we'll come back at 12. After you guys give yourselves 5 minutes break, a 5-minute break, I'll come back on the screen and redrop the link to the slide deck and the links to all of the resources. We'll come back in 12 and just have a quick share out of what came up for you guys, what you saw, what you want to learn more about, and then we'll close from there because we're together till 12:15. So what I'm going to do right now is drop some of these links in the chat. Bear with me. Here is the slide deck if you want all of the things that we have shared so far. And here, this one's a little bit longer. So this is going to be by deeper learning and site lead level. So this is our Explorer time. This one, a lot of links, but I want you guys to be able to access it in the best way for you. So these are the site lead examples, and it goes teacher examples by deeper learning content area. And then in a couple minutes, I'll drop in the Padlet just so you have time to actually explore. Assessment for learning, okay. And then before you look at any of this, I really want you guys to just take a break for yourself. Go screen off or cut the video off for a little bit and just walk around, stretch your legs. It's a long day of being in front of the computer. So in 5 minutes, I'll come back on and share with you guys that it's time to kind of start exploring. But right now, my hope is that you guys take a break. We'll come back in about 3 minutes now, and I'll let you guys explore the resources for 10 minutes, and we'll come back at 12 and just kind of do a deeper conversation. Does that make sense? Can you guys give me a thumbs up or just unmute and say, yeah, that makes sense? Or Devlin, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Thank you, thank you. Please take your break. You deserve it. Let's see if I can play this silently though. Oh yeah. 3 minutes exactly. Sorry guys, I wasn't expecting that. But that is your 5-minute break. What I'm gonna do now is just redrop in the links to the different resources, and I'll also drop in the Padlet so you can start writing out your noticings and wonderings, and we'll come back at 12 on the dot to just kind of share out what came up for us, any questions that we would like to share for the group. We're doing this instead of breakout rooms because I've heard that breakout rooms are a little wonky. Some people get sent off, some don't. So we're just going to eliminate that piece for it so we're all on the same page. All right, so here are the resources that you can explore. Also, if you have access to the slide deck, and I'll drop the slide deck link in as well, you can go to slide 24, and it will show you all of those resources. So I'm going to actually put that in there, slide 24. Slide deck. And it'll kind of hyperlink those to those resources. Mhm. And then lastly, for you to record your thoughts. Sorry for all the links. I just want you guys to be set up for success. This is where you can record noticings and wonderings, because we'll come back at 12 to just discuss what came up for us. And I'll be around, so if you just need to unmute or ask a question, I'll be here. We have about 3 more minutes, so feel free to, if you haven't recorded your thoughts in the Padlet, please feel free to just go over there and write initial thoughts. We'll have a conversation in about 3 minutes. I just saw your note, Miss Williams. The links in the chat aren't working for you?
Yeah, it's like they're just a part of the communication bubble.
Okay, let me
When I
see.
click on it, it's all gray. Like I have to highlight it, and I tried to highlight it and put it into the search engine, and that wouldn't work either.
I'm sorry about that. Let me see.
Even the slides, I tried to. I should just be able to click on it in the link usually, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the chat.
If you click on, it's that usually should work that way. I'm not sure why it's not. I'm trying to test it out, but it's taking me straight to the slides. Let's see. And you have the actual slide deck too? The bigger slide deck, the PLE slide deck?
No.
No? Okay, let me send you that one. And then that one has all of the resources in there too. It's just not it's not broken down by group. There's kind of one big one, but you'll still be able to see it. Give me 1 second. If that doesn't work, I can always email it to you too.
Okay. Yeah, I would just like to be able to look over it at least.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna drop these in here, but I'll also send you an email. Maybe if I send it to you personal too, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's not even highlighting blue like it normally does.
Really?
It may be something with my computer.
Okay, let me make a note to email it to you, and then the second.
That'd be fine. That'd be great.
Even that way you can still have it. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. We are going to come back as a group and just kind of do a quick little share out. So I see that a lot of us went over to the gym or to the Padlet and wrote some thoughts. So I can also screen share that and people can unmute. or we can just have a brief conversation, just sharing out initial thoughts. I think in the interest of time, it may be easier to just kind of unmute and share if you were able to explore the resources, or maybe you were just kind of thinking to yourself of how you can do some of the activities or lessons some of us shared earlier. But just kind of wanted to know if you remember what resource you shared, or you explored sharing that one out, but just sharing your initial thoughts about some ways that you could see your classroom or your school site implementing some of the lessons or activities. And if there were any resources or support you anticipate needing already, because that's something my team can come in and help support you guys with this school year. If you know that you want to try something, but you know there's a blockage or some type of challenge already there, we can make plans to help you guys out. Just wanted to give space for people to unmute and share initial thoughts and start a quick little conversation about it. I know it says use the raise hand feature, but I think it's a small enough group where people can just unmute and share what came up for them.
Hi, this is Claire Wernicke from Monroe second grade. I was looking at assessment for learning, and I was thinking about students giving each other feedback. I definitely had my students leaving each other comments on their work on Seesaw last year, but I don't think I facilitated it like further from there. So I think one thing I want to do is have them have some feedback conversations as well. Or maybe, you know, have at least just a conference with a partner where they can talk about the feedback that they gave. In second grade, they could probably say and explain more than they can also type efficiently. But then the other piece I was thinking about was on slide 56 is talking about assessment for learning for families. And I feel like, you know, certain families use Seesaw more than others. Certain families get way more into looking at their kids' work on Seesaw, but I would love to, I don't know if maybe this is a resource that you have and I can put this down, but kind of facilitate for parents more ways that they can be looking at their kids' work and understanding how that's contributing to what's on the report card or what we're learning this week, and make sure that, you know, if they want to spend the time looking at their work, what are they looking for and what can they actually see in terms of their kids' progress? Because I think it's kind of underutilized, at least at my school site.
Yeah, I think those are both great. I know in my classroom, especially the last year, but it was also distance learning year, I got like very like, I don't even know, I'm almost obsessive with like how like I wanted to explain every nuance to families, but I felt like because I wanted to explain everything so much for them, our conversations got a little bit deeper because we had that open communication, but definitely like sharing with them, not just progress reports, but like this reading assessment is going to look at X, Y, and Z, or this Fountas-Pinnell test is going to show these things. So like families aren't just like, oh, they're testing, they know exactly what's going on. So they felt a little bit more empowered about the ways they could like ask questions or push back and say, hey, like, why does it only look at this? Or we ended up having deeper conversations about the learning happening in classroom. One, because I think they were at home with their little ones, but two, because we took a different approach as to like how we shared things with them. And it wasn't just like, oh, that's how we do it. It was like, no, if I can't explain to a family why we're doing this assessment or what that actually shows, then should we be doing that? Which is like this other conversation of not throwing it out the window, but just like really having that design piece. Like, is this actually giving students and families the outcome that they want? Like, we have district and state standards, but what do the parents want for their little ones? And are we able to do that for them in this school year? So yeah, I think that'd be great to just think that out with them. And if you need a thought partner, I'm always down, Claire, to chat and talk about stuff. Anybody else have something they want to share that really stood out to them, or a question? Go ahead. I'm gonna pin you. Give me 1 second, Tim. All right, there you go.
Oh, well, I was just impressed with some of the choice offerings I was seeing, including from Susie Moore, the text choice board.
Yeah.
Giving that validity to how a student wants to show, because you know that giving that choice so they can kind of take some ownership on what they're going to be doing. I like how that kind of ties in even to the Google form survey on slide 29, showing just asking for class input about what they like, what they like what kind of projects do they like the best.
Mhm.
I like that because I'm juggling right now, internally and maybe even externally a little bit, with how I want my reading workshop notebook to look. If I want to do it an online reading notebook, or if I want to do it in a paper notebook. And now I'm kind of leaning toward, you get to pick, or some sort of like balance of the two, or like maybe some ability to switch, even if they want to switch. I don't know. I'm processing, but I like the inspiration.
Yay, that's exactly what we want to hear. Yeah, I think I love the idea of like asking the students what they want, even the younger ones, if it's like picture stuff, because it gives them like, oh, my teacher really cares. Like, it's not just I have to do this thing because I'm at school and that's what you do. It instantly helps them engage with it in a different way, and they know like, oh, my teacher wants to know about me, and then that's going to inform the learning that we do, and it gives them that voice even once they leave your classroom to start naming. And I think that's one thing that I experienced as an educator after doing the PLE program, was the educators who got my kids as second graders and third graders, like, we could always tell when they came from your class, because they would say, hey, do you have any wobble seats? Or, hey, I really like to sit down here when I'm reading, or I like to do stand up when I'm doing math. The way that they kind of approach learning, even after being in my space, was different, because we kind of gave them so many ways to play around with it and explore. So their learner identity started coming out more too, which was amazing to see, especially in spaces where it's typically not encouraged or even celebrated, that they got to have their own voice and choice in what learning looks like for them. So I'm excited that it's playing around in your head. I feel like that in any way that you think we can help and support with that, or come out and just be another teacher in the spaces. I will say sometimes it takes more than one educator in the room to just kind of help with that management piece of it. But I'm more than down to like be that person in the space. It's like, you can go to Miss Jackson or come to Devlin to help if you want to set up your reader notebook online, or if you want me to do the paper one, I'm down to support anyway. But I'm excited for you. Maybe one last person before we start going into closing. Any other thoughts or questions or concerns come up to mind while you were exploring? All right, we're going to keep on going in the interest of time, but you have our contact information, so please feel free to reach out. In the initial flesh out of this session, you guys are going to be in breakout rooms and then write out your thoughts. But I think between the Padlet and the thoughts that we shared just now, I think that's good. So if you want to write in the chat, feel free, but you also don't have to. And now I'm looking, sorry guys, my brain's all over the place, but now I'm seeing some friends have wrote in the chat as well. Choice gives students agency, responsibility, and increased motivation. I saw something about putting a sensor in a projector to make it more interactive. How does that work? I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head, but I have someone on my team who does, so I will make sure that I connect with you and get you the
It said short throw projector and sensor. So maybe the sensor was in the screen or something?
Maybe it was one of the smart boards where they could be able to touch, and maybe that's how it sends. I don't want to throw you completely off, so I'm gonna reach out to
Okay.
you and make sure you get to answer that question. Thank you for asking. Let me write that down too. Okay. All right. So if you enjoyed learning and kind of exploring more, we would love for you guys to dive deeper with deeper learning. SFUSD has a website that kind of focuses just on deeper learning. I'll drop that in the chat so you guys can see that one. And if you want to learn more about the personalized learning environments program, there's also a webpage, so I'll drop both of those links in the chat. Wanted to give some time for closing and just kind of wrap up. So digital learning is something that my team has been working on even before I got here for the last 10, almost 15 years. There's been a digital learning team, which is a part of SFUSD's Department of Technology. And we focus on leading professional learning, coaching, and program development, and also content creation, centered, on technology-enabled 21st century learning. And to learn more about the digital learning in SFUSD, there is a link to kind of check out that webpage, learn about different people on my team and what they're focusing on. Will or has the district subscribed to Padlet for all of us? Right now, we are under an app buying freeze, so we won't be able to buy anything new this year. But there is a free version. I think you can have up to 5, and I've even played around with it couple years ago. I have to go back and check, but you can delete old Padlets and refresh. So that's what I've kind of been suggesting for people to do until our app buying freezes unfrozen. But for now, we can't buy it now, but there are free versions where I think you can have up to 5, I believe, but you have to delete one and then be able to use it again if you use more than 5. But I can add more resources for you, Marian, if that helps. All right, let's keep going. Also, if you enjoyed today's session or just want to participate in more digital learning programming, there's 2 programs in particular that you may find interesting. The PLE program, which is what we've been talking about and kind of engaging with, and the DLEAF program. Each school site is able to have up to 3 teachers a part of the DLEAF program. It's a digital learning and facilitators program, and they are individuals who help support with formulating and facilitating how digital learning and teaching looks specifically at your site. Sometimes they're a part of the ILT, the instructional leadership team at your school, and sometimes they are tech leads. So if you have a tech lead at your school, they may also be the D lead. But if you want more information about either one of those programs, I highly suggest you check out those slides, click those links to get more info. And there's also PLE interest forms and DLEAP designation forms that you can fill out. The last thing that I want to tell you is that each one of your schools has a digital learning team partner. So depending on what cohort you are a part of, these are members of my team and myself that are assigned to the different cohorts. So anytime your school needs help with just thought partnership, our planning, our tech integration, leading professional development, our coaching around technology-enabled deeper learning, and just serving as a liaison, if you have a tech question or how to access Department of Technology resources, we are the team for you to help out with that. So please, please share this with your network. If you're not sure what cohort you belong to, feel free to ask me and I can look it up really quickly for you. But we're here to help. And lastly, in our last minute, please, please, please fill out the feedback. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Tim, I'm going to look that up really quickly for you. I'm going to drop the feedback in the chat and then I'm going to find out which cohort partner is for you. All right. The feedback helps me just become a better presenter, but also know what I need to take back to my team to make sure that you guys are getting all the information that you need. So I would really appreciate if you filled it out. I do know that Drew is a part of cohort 3, so your cohort partner will be Dan Frost. I'm going to go back to that slide, and then Tim, I'm going to look up your cohort partner right now. Give me 1 second. And then if you don't have any questions, thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure you get a lunch, sit down, get some outside time. And then 12:45, I believe, is our keynote. Cohort partners. Oops, sorry.
Hey. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Generational house and it's street cleaning today. Somebody got to do it.
Devlin, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Tenderloin is a part of cohort 2. And so that would be Jessica Peterson, and she's awesome. She's really great. So I think she should be able to help you with all your digital learning needs this year. Were there any other schools?
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, have a great day. All righty, I'm gonna send us off. Have a great day and have a great digital district day. See you soon.